Imagine a child, maybe one, just eyes sparkling, right? Tearing open wrapping paper and finding this miniature car, perfectly sized, gleaming, ready to go. That feeling, that thrill, it's almost universal, isn't it? It feels like just a simple part of childhood. But what if I told you this market, these ride-on toys, these battery-powered cars, it's actually a global powerhouse. We're talking billions. So today, that's what we're doing, a deep dive into the kids' car market. You probably don't think about it every day, but it's this massive, growing industry worldwide. Our mission really is to cut through the usual stuff, use some fresh market research data, and give you a shortcut to understanding the global picture and where it's heading. We'll look at the global revenue, pinpoint the regions really driving things, and see which countries are accelerating fastest. Expect some, honestly, surprising trends. So, okay, let's pull back the curtain here. We've got some pretty compelling numbers in front of us. This report, it charts growth from 2021 way out to 2033. It's definitely more than just toys. It's a significant slice of the global economy, reflecting consumer behavior. What's the first thing that kind of jumps out at you from this data?
Well, what immediately grabs me is just how these seemingly small purchases, these little moments of fun for kids, they all add up. Globally, it's a multi-billion-dollar thing. And the regional differences, they're not just numbers. They tell a really interesting story,
Hmm.
about economic growth, about how much money families have to spend, even about shifting priorities in different cultures. It's almost like a barometer for household spending power.
That's a great way to put it. A
Yeah.
barometer. Okay, so before we drill down into the regions, let's just take a moment to appreciate the scale. Globally, I mean,
Yeah.
we're talking about a market already worth over $21 billion back in 2021,
Yeah, that's billion with a B.
and it looks like it's not slowing down anytime soon.
Oh, far from it. The forecasts show a pretty significant jump. They're projecting it to hit over $25 billion by 2025, and then really accelerating to nearly $36.2 billion by 2033. That works out to a compound annual growth rate, the CAGR, of 4.628% over that whole period. Yeah, and you have to think a market this big, growing at almost, what, 4.6% a year for over a decade? That means we're adding serious revenue, hundreds of millions year after year. It really makes you ask, though, what's driving this? Such consistent growth across so many different places. Is it just about toys or maybe something a bit more aspirational?
So yeah, not just steady growth, but a really impressive, sustained climb for over 10 years.
Mhm.
But the really interesting part is where. Where is this growth actually happening fastest?
Exactly. And this is where looking at the regions becomes so revealing because, while the overall market's growing, some places are just flooring it. They're leading the charge. Others are more mature, stable, but maybe not growing quite as explosively. It paints a really diverse picture.
Okay, right. And here's where it gets, like you said, really interesting. Asia Pacific. It's not just growing in this market.
Hmm.
It seems like it's absolutely leading the pack globally.
It's absolutely dominating.
Yeah.
Asia Pacific clocked in over $8.19 billion back in 2021. It's expected to break $10 billion by 2025 and then just leaps, this is astonishing, to over $15 billion by 2033. And its CAGR, that growth rate, 5.223%. That's the highest regional rate anywhere in the world.
$15 billion just in Asia Pacific.
Just in Asia Pacific. And that combination, I mean, the huge size plus that really fast growth, it really highlights this massive shift happening in global consumer markets. It points to, a growing middle class, more people living in cities, families starting to spend more on things for their kids. It's like a symbol of better living standards.
The CAGR over 5% on a base that big is, well, it's remarkable.
Mm.
So within this powerhouse region, which specific countries are really putting the pedal to the metal?
Okay, so within Asia Pacific, China is unsurprisingly huge. It's projected to hit nearly $4.5 billion by 2033. That's with a strong 5.424% CAGR. Massive consumer base there. But the country with the fastest acceleration, that's India.
India.
Yeah, India is set to more than double its market size. It goes from just over $1 billion in 2021 to over $2.2 billion by 2033. And check this CAGR, 6.112%. That's the highest in the whole region.
6.1% for India. That's incredible. It really shines a light on the economic changes happening there, doesn't it?
It really does. That kind of rapid expansion, especially for a market already that size, is quite something. Suggests a really fast increase in what families can and choose to spend money on.
And it's not just China and India driving this, right? There are other players too.
Oh, definitely not. We're seeing strong growth across the board. Look at Singapore, for example. It shows a really impressive 5.535% CAGR, expected to hit over $580 million by 2033. And then the broader Southeast Asia region, taken together, also very strong. A 5.824% CGR, reaching over $1.15 billion by 2033.
Wow.
What's kind of fascinating here, I think, is it suggests these aren't just toys anymore. Maybe they're becoming aspirational purchases, symbols of like a modern childhood, or maybe providing kids with outdoor play options, especially as more people live in cities.
That gives us a really vivid picture of Asia Pacific. Okay, let's switch gears. Another region showing pretty significant momentum seems to be South America. What's the story there?
South America is definitely one to watch, yeah. The forecast is for it to reach over $2.2 billion by 2033, and it's growing at a really healthy 4.935% CAGR. Pretty consistent strength across the continent, actually, which suggests maybe a widespread economic lift.
Interesting. Any specific countries standing out?
Well, Argentina is showing really robust growth. It goes from about $210 million in 2021 up to nearly $400 million by 2033. That's a 5.485% CAGR. And Chile is also performing strongly. It has a 5.155% CAGR.
Okay, so countries like Brazil, Argentina, Chile, they're really pushing this market forward in South America. It's interesting how you see that acceleration there, too, kind of mirroring what you said about rising incomes.
Exactly, that consistent growth across these different South American economies. It points to that bigger trend, urbanization, more focus on consumer goods for kids. As family incomes go up, it seems there's a clear move towards spending on children's leisure, entertainment, and these kinds of cars fit right into that.
Makes sense. Now, let's pivot again. Let's talk about a more, shall we say, established market.
Yeah.
North America, how are kids' cars doing there in that sort of mature economic setting?
Right. North America, it's still a huge piece of the global pie, projected to reach over $7.9 billion by 2033. The CAGR is 3.905%. So, it's a large, mature market. The growth in dollar terms is significant, but the rate of growth is naturally a bit more moderate compared to those booming markets in Asia and South America.
Right. Slower percentage growth, but off a massive base.
Precisely. The United States, of course, dominates. It goes from almost $4 billion in 2021 up to over $6.15 billion by 2033. The CAGR there is slightly lower, though, at 3.783%, but Canada shows pretty healthy progress of 4.526% CAGR. That'll take it over $1 billion by 2033. And Mexico, too, contributing significantly, forecasted at a 4.065% CAGR, reaching over $700 million.
Okay, so a massive market overall in North America, but the growth rate is, more moderate, more stable, maybe, compared to the rising stars we just talked about. It suggests a different dynamic, perhaps. Maybe it's less about first-time buyers and more about replacing older models or upgrading, steady demand in a market that's already quite full.
That's a really good point. Yeah, that's often what you see in mature markets. Stability, consistent demand. It's often fueled by strong purchasing power that's already there and, well-established shops and online stores. The focus might shift less from introducing the idea of a kid's car and more towards offering, say, advanced features, maybe licensed brands, or just catering to that replacement cycle, even if the percentage growth isn't hitting those highs seen elsewhere.
Okay, that makes sense. What about Europe? How does it fit into this picture?
Moving to Europe, well, it's another really substantial region. Revenues there are expected to top $7.6 billion by 2033. The overall CAGR is 4.202%. But, Europe is incredibly diverse, right? And that's reflected here. It's a very mixed picture when you look country by country. It really reflects the different economic situations and maybe even consumer cultures across the continent.
The diversity is definitely striking when you look at the numbers. You got economic giants like Germany doing really well, climbing to over $1.5 billion by 2033 with a strong 4.913% CAGR. The UK also shows solid growth, 4.535% CAGR, hitting over $1.1 billion. But then you see countries like Russia with much slower expansion, just 3.201% CAGR, and Luxembourg seems to have the most modest growth in the report at 3.034% CAGR. What do you think causes such a big difference in growth rates within just one continent?
That's a really important question, isn't it? It shows that even within a generally wealthy region like Europe, local factors play a huge role. It could be anything, really. Specific economic challenges in certain countries, maybe different cultural views on these kinds of toys, different family sizes, income levels, or even just how developed the stores are for selling these specific products. Look at France, for instance. Major economy, right? But its CAGR is a bit lower, 3.632%. So it suggests factors beyond just the overall size of the economy are definitely shaping this.
Fascinating. Okay, last couple of regions, the Middle East and Africa, Are we seeing similar patterns there, a sort of emerging potential diverse growth?
Yeah, both regions definitely show good potential and pretty consistent growth. The Middle East is forecasted to reach over $1.76 billion by 2033. That's with a healthy 4.823% CAGR. The UAE stands out with particularly strong expansion. A 5.375% CAGR there indicates a really vibrant market there.
That's quite high.
It is, and Turkey is close behind at 5.221% CAGR. This likely reflects, maybe high disposable income in some of these countries and perhaps a strong cultural focus on family and children.
Right. And what about the African continent itself?
Africa as a whole is projected to reach over $1.55 billion by 2033, growing at a 4.286% CAGR. South Africa seems to be leading the pack there with a 4.907% CAGR. That takes it to over $623 million by 2033. And Nigeria also shows healthy growth, 4.538% CAGR, reaching over $235 million. So these figures suggest that, much like we saw in other emerging economies, African nations are seeing demand increase for these products as their economies grew and people have more spending power. Again, it kind of ties back to that idea of maybe aspirational purchases becoming more common.
Okay, so we've gone through the globe, region by region, country by country, seeing billions of dollars, some really staggering growth rates, and these distinct regional patterns. So let's zoom out again. For you listening, what are the really big takeaways from this whole deep dive into kids' cars? What does it all mean when we connect the dots?
Well, stepping back, I think what this market really illustrates is this clear split, this bifurcation in the global economy right now. On one hand, you have the established, mature markets. Think North America, much of Europe. They're huge, they're stable, still growing, yes, but at a more moderate kind of pace. Growth there might be driven more by upgrades, replacements, just consistent demand. But then on the other hand, you see where the real acceleration is happening. That's in the emerging economies, especially Asia Pacific, South America, and, parts of the Middle East and Africa too. They're high CAGRs, those faster growth rates. They signal explosive growth, driven by rising incomes, more people living in cities, and just evolving ideas about what families want to buy.
Yeah.
So this isn't just about toy sales, is it? It's a really tangible picture of where global wealth seems to be shifting and how that changes spending priorities for families all over the world. It really shows where the economic center of gravity is moving.
That's a fantastic way to summarize it. A tangible illustration of mature versus emerging economies playing out in a market for something very specific. It really makes you think, doesn't it? About all of the different factors, economic, cultural area, that influence what people buy globally, even for something like a kid's car. The basic desire seems pretty universal, but the way the market behaves is so tied to that local economic story. So from global billions to these specific country surges, this deep dive has shown us a really fascinating picture. Growth, economic shifts. It's a powerful reminder, I think, that every market, doesn't matter how niche it seems on the surface, tells a much bigger story about our world, about families, about economic progress globally.
Indeed, it does. That sustained growth pretty much everywhere, combined with that really high acceleration in the emerging markets, it gives us some really valuable clues about global consumer trends and economic development. It makes you think beyond just what people are buying and more about why these specific things are gaining traction in different places. And often it lines up directly with growing prosperity and changing family life.
Absolutely. Okay, so with that, maybe we can leave you with a final thought to chew on. As these markets keep growing, keep evolving, especially in those high growth regions, how might the actual products change? The designs, the features, maybe even the whole idea of a kid's car. How might they shift to reflect different cultural values or maybe growing environmental concerns or new technologies? What could the ride-on toy of, say, 2033 look like in India compared to one in the US? And what will that tell us about the future of childhood, play, and how we all consume things globally?